Technically, summer does not start until June, but if you live near where I live, which is in Central Florida, zone 9B, it's already hot. It feels like summer. It is definitely out of the cool weather season, out of the warm weather season. We're headed into hot weather season. And during hot weather season, it can be a little tough to get your plants to survive, so it's time to start thinking about hot weather crops. So I'm going to share with you all the things that you can be starting from seed or transplant in your garden this month that does like the heat. And then I'm going to show you around and show you exactly what is still growing in my garden here. Now, if you are south of me, you have definitely been in the warm weather crops for a while now. If you're north of me, last month was really your last month for warm weather crops, like your tomatoes, your cucumbers, your squashes. You guys also need to kind of go with us here in Central Florida and move towards the hot weather crops, although your plants are probably doing a little bit better because you had a little bit cooler of a season. I know several of you were still getting some nice nighttime temperatures for a while there in April, but that is about to change. That is all going to end, and it is about to get flaming hot here in Florida. So let's start out with the greens that you can grow, because lettuce, kale, and spinach are completely out of the window. There is no way that you can grow those. I mean, technically you can probably get them to sprout, but they're going to bolt and they're going to be really, really bitter. It's going to be very kind of nasty to eat. So let me give you some ideas of some other ones. In previous videos, I've told you about my CISO spinach. That one is really good. You really got to really get into those perennial spinaches, those tropical perennial spinaches. There's a couple other ones like Ethiopian kale, Egyptian spinach, longevity, Okinawa. There's a lot of different kinds. Malabar, red Malabar, it's really good. So try a few of them until you find the one that you really like. Some of them are kind of hit or miss. And then you have things that are a little more common, like this is a rhubarb Swiss chard, and then I have a regular Swiss chard. There's also perpetual spinach I'm growing here, and then lots of different kinds of herbs. I have like oregano, lemon balm, basil. Start kind of thinking about some things that maybe are not super typical to put in a salad. Oh, cranberry hibiscus, guys, this one is amazing. And Kiko's crump, another kind of hibiscus, that's really nice. There's a lot of different kinds of hibiscus that you can grow that's edible hibiscus, all of which are really good. The next one we're going to talk about are tropical squashes, because there are a few squashes that you can grow during the hot weather. And the one that's most common that everyone thinks about is Seminole pumpkins. They are a machata variety. It's very well known to be able to grow down here because it handles powdery mildew, it handles our rain, our humidity. It's not usually affected by the squash vine borers, and it will flower through the summer, especially if you give it some shade. That's why I love to grow mine up a tree, because the tree, this palm tree right here, is going to give it a lot of shade during the summer, which is perfect for it. I've done this 4 years now. It's a really fun and out of the box kind of way of growing things when you don't have a lot of space. I do have a decent amount of space, but if you don't, try thinking about growing up fences, growing up existing trees, growing up your fruit trees. This is a sable bearded palm, and so it's just going to climb up here. I don't really do much except kind of get it in this direction to climb. This is not a Seminole pumpkin. Believe it or not, there are other types of pumpkins that you can grow, or squashes. There's Tahitian melon squash, Trombocino squash. I think all those do well in the summer. I'm trying out a new one. This is called a South Anna, another type of machata. It looks a little bit more like a butternut squash, and supposedly it does well in hot climates. I will keep you updated to see how it does. But so far, the plant's doing quite well. It has no disease, and it's already starting to make its climb up the palm tree, which I think is going to look so adorable. It always looks so adorable with this big, huge squash plants growing up with all these little fruit on it hanging off a palm tree. I think it's like quintessential Florida. Some other ones you might want to try, which I'm also trying this year, is chayote. This one is a perennial, and for our South Florida growers, technically it shouldn't live as a perennial here in Central Florida where I live, because I do get frost during the winters and that will kill it. But I love it so much, I'm going to try to grow it as an annual, and I might cut it back and protect it during the winter. We'll see. Or I might just regrow it every year as an annual. And then there's luffa. If you really like to make your own sponges, or you can also eat the lufas, the young lufas, as a summer squash. I never have been able to try them because the foliage gets so crazy big that you almost can't even see the fruit in there. And by the time I find it's too big to be eaten as a summer squash. You really need to eat them young. So I have no idea what they taste like, but I hear that they're a good replacement for summer squash. Now we're gonna jump into tropical root crops, because this one is very interesting and I finally have gotten into them. This right here is a taro plant. It is a perennial. I've been growing it for a couple years now from a viewer who sent me some cuttings. Taro is one. You have some other lesser known ones like yucca, jicama. Then you have ginger and turmeric. Those are really fun to grow. I have some pots by the pool. And then the last one that is very, very popular is sweet potatoes. If you guys are not growing sweet potatoes in your Florida garden, you are missing out. This is a great one to grow for many reasons. You can start them from store-bought sweet potatoes, which is awesome. You can grow them for years from that one store-bought sweet potato. I have a video about that. I'll put that down in the description. If you want to know more about growing sweet potatoes or many of the other vegetables that I mentioned on my channel, I have my Homegrown Florida Gardening Guide. It is a 138 page, 30 chapter book. Each chapter has a different vegetable. It goes into everything you ever want to know about growing it here in Florida. Timing, varieties, pest, disease management, container growing, everything that you can think of. Make sure to go to homegrownfloridagarden.com and pick up a copy of your ebook today. The next one you're going to want to get your hands on is some beans, specifically, or the legume family in general. So there's three that kind of stand out in my mind. So the first one's going to be cowpeas. Great crop, a great cover crop for your garden to keep the soil healthy while you can still get a vegetable out of it. It is black-eyed peas if you're not familiar with cowpeas. And the easiest way to cover crop this is to go to your store and pick up a bag of dried black-eyed peas from the store and then sprinkle them all through your garden bed and then walk away. So you can do this as a cover crop if, for example, you don't want to garden during the summer. And guys, it is completely okay to take a break in gardening here in Florida during the summer. In fact, that is the perfect time to do it. But don't leave your beds uncovered. Definitely either thickly mulch them, or what I like to do is create a living mulch. Using black-eyed peas, dried black-eyed peas from the grocery store is like the cheapest, easiest way to do this. Another one that you can use is sun hemp. That is really one of my favorites. I think it's even better than the black-eyed peas, because the black-eyed peas, they will create a pod, and if you leave it alone long enough, those pods are going to drop and they're going to self-seed into your bed. Some people don't like that. I don't mind it, but it does increase your weeding. Sun hemp, on the other hand, doesn't really have that problem, because sun hemp has such a long season, and when it finally does create a pod and dries out and drops, for most of us here in Florida, we don't even have a long enough season to do that. They will die out at some point, and it won't reseed itself so easily. It also has the highest amount of nitrogen that it pushes back in your soil. So if you wanted to go super organic with your fertilizing and your feeding, putting down a cover crop is like the way to go. And sun hemp is your friend, and it grows during the summer, all summer long, and you don't really have to do anything. You just chop it down and throw it in the bed as mulch. At the end of the season, you're good to go. Some other ones, if you want to stick to actually growing for a crop, is going to be peanuts. Those are really fun. And then long beans. Long beans are like a green bean replacement. One of my favorites is the Thai soldier beans, but there's a lot of other different asparagus beans. There's a lot of different ones. They look very, very funny because they grow and like these long, that's why they're called long beans. They're like little snakes hanging off of your trellises, and a lot of times they do require a trellis. The Thai soldier beans, they are a vining variety, but they're almost like, they're lazy. They're like a lazy vining variety. They don't get quite so big. So usually I'll just throw a tomato cage in here and it'll climb that a little bit, and then it gives me my beans and I'm happy. So you don't have to go like full blown arch trellis, flat panel trellis. You can use one of the ones that are a little less aggressive and just throw in a tomato cage and it'll do just fine. Now that's pretty much most of the vegetables that I can think of that will grow during this time of year that you can start from seed. A lot of the other ones, like the tomatoes and the peppers and those kinds of things, you might have some struggles with starting them from seed this time of year. So if for some reason you did want to grow peppers, because they tend to do okay through the summer, especially hot peppers, or you want to grow an Everglade tomato and you're having trouble getting it to start outside because of the heat, you could start those seeds inside. But let's not forget our fruits. We still have time to plant fruits. Believe it or not, there's some fruits that really, really love to grow in the hot weather. One of them is this little guy behind me. He's still getting over his winter drama that he went through. This is a banana. You can also do passion fruit, pineapple, and papaya. Now the other fruit trees, like the peaches and the plums and the blueberries and the figs and all those things that I mentioned before, I really encourage you to get those in the ground around that March to April timeframe, unless you're up in North Florida. If you're up in North Florida, May could work as well for you. For us in Central and South, it's going to be rough on the non-tropical fruit trees to get them in now. You totally can give it a shot, just healthy expectations, maybe give it some shade cloth, something to kind of give it some time to get used to it and really monitor that watering. I really like to put those in right when my last frost date has passed so that they have the most amount of time to kind of get established before that real summer heat hits. The last one we're going to talk about is flowers, and there's really like 4 flowers I think of that really love summer. Now there's a lot of other flowers that will grow, and there's a lot of perennial flowers that will grow, but when we're talking about the annuals, you're really going to like sunflowers. They love it, and they're also a really great trap crop. They're going to pull some of the bugs away from your vegetable garden and onto the sunflowers. Don't try to treat them, just let them tear them up. Then there's zinnias. They come in a beautiful array of colors, so you can do all kinds of zinnias. Marigolds are really great, especially if you're going to cover crop and maybe you've had a root knot nematode issue in the past. Blanketing marigolds across your entire bed and then calling it a summer and going inside and getting cooled off, it's going to work on the nematodes while the summer progresses, and you just chop it down and leave them in the beds when they're done. They do self-seed kind of readily, but if you plan on doing this year over year, maybe you won't mind that they're popping up in your beds. And then the last one's going to be nasturtiums. I think they're a really great trap crop along with the sunflowers, but they have different kinds of varieties. There's like a small bush compact variety, but there's also like super vining. So depending on if you just want pretty flowers for the garden as a little minor trap crop in between some of your other plants, or if you want to have the nasturtiums there to grow across the whole bed to protect the soil while you take a break from gardening, do the vining for that purpose, do the bush for the pretty trap cropping, you know, tight on space situation. Now that we walked through all that, I'm going to show you around and show you exactly what's thriving in my garden so you can see like what you can expect if you have been following along and starting things on the timeline that I've been mentioning. We're going to start off on this part of the garden where I have 4 beds. The tomatillos and the tomatoes are still doing very, very well. I do have a squash tucked in underneath here, and it's just now starting to put on fruit. Can you see that? Very, very cool. And because it's tucked in that nice shady spot, it will last longer this way. Over the rest of the bed, I'm putting in some flowers. I have some peppers. I have my perennial green onions, and we're not even going to talk about that garlic. I'm very depressed. But what we are going to talk about is this right here. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It's my corn squash bean bed. So in this bed, I do have a Seminole pumpkin that has been struggling. I have a couple more throughout, but the corn has done amazing. It looks incredible. I did have to put in some what is this, Florida weave style thing, because I was getting a lot of wind back here and it was causing them to fall down. So I put in some string to hold them up. And then the green beans are doing phenomenal. Do you see how many flowers, how many beans? They could crawl up the corn, but honestly I started them a little too early to do that. But look at, guys, when I talk about getting a year's supply of green beans, I'm going to get a year's supply from 9 plants. I think that is incredible. This is a Blue Lake pole bean versus the Blue Lake bush bean. It's a lot of green beans for 9 plants. It's official. I am never growing bush beans again because that is incredible. That is outstanding. Another one that I have going on is right here. It's all my potatoes. I really didn't have a lot of hope for them in the beginning, but they've actually already flowered, which tells me that we're on the other half of their growing. So we just have a couple more weeks and we're going to be pulling up potatoes. And then check out all these cucumbers. You see all those cucumbers hanging? Like, this is definitely a good cucumber year for me. All of these babies, everything. They're looking a little wilty right now. That's from the heat, guys. That's normal. I know that they're watered well. I check with my moisture meter, but this is how they behave when it starts getting hot. They start getting wilty and real dramatic. Eventually that's going to lead to them not flowering as well, and then they won't fruit as well, but I'm trying to push them to get finished before that happens. The melon bed is coming along nicely. It's starting to spread out. I got my first flowers on the cantaloupe, but not the actual watermelon yet, so that should be happening any day. I've got a lot of tomatoes. I've been having a lot of blight happening this season. We've had a bit of more rain than what I'm used to, so I've been clipping them a lot more than what I had planned to do. I have a lot of herbs, and then we have some of the dry beans that are starting to dry out, so I'll be picking those soon. More tomatoes, once again, doing really well. I'm using the organza bags in hopes of keeping the leaf foot bugs off these plants. Look at the size of these tomatoes, guys. Can you see that? Look at them. They're huge. Look at the bundle of tomatoes right there. That is wild. We have the squash that are going to start growing up that palm tree. I also have all of my green stalks with all my herbs and my greens that I showed you earlier. Then we get into the fruit tree area. I have got blueberries over there over my shoulder. I've got peaches right there, the fig tree, the star fruit, the Indian berry, which is now just starting to flower. This thing always takes forever. And then we have plums on this side, a plum in a pot on this side, the elderberry, the loquat that produced already, pomegranate that doesn't seem to be doing much of anything. I'm not sure it's getting enough sun over here. And the mulberries that I have been harvesting for weeks now. Inside the pool cage, I have a couple tomatoes that I'm testing in deep, deep shade to see how well they do. And then on top of that, we also have a couple more fruit trees here. Here we have the red jaboticaba. And you can see it has already flowered, and I hand pollinate them in here just because, you know, there's not a whole lot of bees in here, but we're already getting a bunch of the jabas. They're gonna come in slowly. Over here, I've got some lemons coming in. I have a new baby banana. It puts out baby bananas. I have some blackberry lilies that I'm gonna put up front, and here is a pink lemonade blueberry. The mandarin has not fruited this year, but hopefully soon. And then we also have a mango. I got this one, it was much taller, and I cut it back so that it can start to, you know, bush out right at this space. So I hope that gave you some ideas of what you can grow in your garden this time of year. Just because it's hot doesn't mean that you can't grow a garden here in Florida. So get out there and get gardening. Don't forget to pick up a copy of your ebook today. Happy gardening, guys.